So your T2 energy structures, we have... So you have your wind turbine, your solar collector, where's the advanced solar? Am I blind? Okay, it's right there. So your wind turbine, your basic solar collector, your advanced solar collector, your geothermal, your advanced geothermals, your fusion reactor, and your advanced fusion reactor. And there are slight variations on the fusion reactor, but we'll say it's like 3000 energy, 1200 energy, 1050 energy, but that extra 50 energy is taken up by the cloak. It takes 50 energy to cloak. You can turn the cloak off if you want for the extra 50 energy. This produces 1000 energy, 1250. Geothermal power plants can only be built on geothermal vents. And so they cost about 1200 energy each, but they produce about the same as a fusion reactor. So these are about 4 times as efficient as a fusion reactor. Maybe about 3 to 4 times. So the difference between your advanced geothermal power plant and your safe geothermal power plant is that this one has a tiny explosion. This one has an explosion about as big as a nuke. So you have to be careful where you place this one, but if there's nothing built around the area, it's all free. There's another difference actually. The Prude has a lot more health, and so it takes a lot longer to destroy, so you're less likely to have it blow up in the first place. Your Tech 1 geothermal power plant produces a ton of extra energy, and it's more efficient metal-wise than your advanced solar collector. But it costs so much energy that even though it's more efficient, you generally already have enough energy by the time you can afford it. Your geothermal power plants, advanced geothermal power plants, cost the same energy as a fusion reactor, so you don't really have to worry about that. You need to spend that energy anyway. Your advanced solar collectors take a ton of energy, but less than the geothermal power plant, and they're more metal efficient than your solar collector. So if you have a little bit of excess energy, you can build a bunch of advanced solar collectors and reclaim your basic solar collectors. Or when you're preparing for a Tech 2 upgrade and you need to float energy momentarily anyway, you build a bunch of these with that floating energy, because they're less metal and Tech 2 costs a lot of metal. Your T1 solars, they cost a ton of metal, and they're very inefficient on their metal cost, so you probably are going to start with them on most maps, but you want to build basically anything else if you can. They cost 0 energy, and because they cost 0 energy, you can build them when you're out of energy. And so even when you're Tech 2 and whatever, if you just don't have enough energy and you really need it and you've got tons of extra metal, you build solar collectors first. Your wind turbines and your tidal generators, the amount of energy they produce changes based on the map. Now, they're very cheap, but they do cost a little bit of energy, so sometimes you're still going to want to build basic solar collectors instead. But when you go in-game, so this is your wind speed indicator up here, and this is your tidal speed. So your tidal generator costs 90 metal, and so 90 metal for 10 energy is a worse ratio than 155 metal for 20 energy. You can see in the bottom left, it says that the solar collector produces 20 energy. But your wind turbine is more complicated. That's 37 metal, but it produces anywhere between 3 and 17 energy. Now, this isn't linear. The average is higher than 10, which is just the average of 3 and 17 is 10, but the average wind speed is a little different. It tends towards higher. So the average wind speed on this map is actually 12.7. Now, so that you don't necessarily have to calculate or remember the numbers of what's more efficient when, this has a note on it right at the end in red. It says it's better to build solar collectors when average wind speed is below 5 for Armada or 6 for Cortex. I wouldn't take that too seriously, because you've also got to think, if it's spending its half the time below 5 or half the time below 6 if you're Cortex, then that's half the time that you're just not going to have enough energy and you're going to have to build extra. So I tend to go and build somewhere when the average is around somewhere between 7 and 10, depending on how low the minimum is. Because if the minimum is 0, that means sometimes all your wind generators will be producing 0 energy. And so in that case, I like to build at least some bank of solar collectors so that no matter what happens, I'm producing something. Yeah. And so it's like on a map, like the other thing, if I'm on the front line and I just can't afford to ever run out of energy, then I'll just always build. If the wind minimum is too low, I'll just build solars. But generally you can just supplement a little bit. So that's where all the information is. And so you can get that there, you can get that on the website. And yeah, there's actually one more thing about energy generation. And that's you can reclaim. You can reclaim trees. So if we're reclaiming trees here, we see that there's like 10,000 energy in all those trees there. But if we look at how fast our commander reclaims at about 75 energy per second. When he's idle, he produces 25. So that's only 75 energy per second reclaiming. Our constructor produces 7 base, and when reclaiming, produces 43. So that's actually reclaiming at 35 energy per second. And your resurrection bot produces 0 energy when idle. So now he's reclaiming at 57 energy per second. So that scales with your build power. We've got 200 build power on the Lazarus, except it can't build, it can just reclaim and resurrect and repair. Then we've got 80 build power on the construction bot. That's why it's only like 35 energy per second that it produces. And then we've got 300 build power on the commander, which is why it is reclaiming at a full 75 energy per second. Sorry, 75, 57, and 35. Alright. I actually thought the numbers for these were closer, so that's actually good that I checked that. And these numbers are the same. Your construction turret has 200 build power, so that will reclaim at the same speed as a Lazarus. So if your reclaim is all in a single area, you don't need to move, you can build that instead. A Lazarus is cheaper though, although can't see that now. A Lazarus is 110 metal and a construction turret is 210 metal. So there. Alright.